Yeah, it's Diamond Head, I think.
Diamond, okay.
Is the name of the airport. And
Do you have your glasses pushed back?
He's fine.
Oh, okay.
and it was like this. And just then we time it on takeoff. So that we just, you hit a spot like that, and you went off. And then it drops 400 feet right straight down.
Right, so
Just all of a sudden you're over.
you're airborne or else.
You're airborne or else.
Else you're fishing with a boat. Do you want to run any trials or anything?
Just go ahead. I've been already recording.
They're already recording.
Yep.
Okay.
You just.
Shall I open up a preliminary statement or something?
Yeah, I'd like to, might just.
Okay. I'm at the home of Red Miner. We call him, his real name is Leo, but we've known him as Red for years. Red is one of the pioneer aviation people in the state of Iowa. And Red, I'd like you in your own terms to tell me where you were born and what the early life was like in Iowa here, when you first thought you might be interested in flying and when you first flew.
Well, I was born in that city that they called Cedar Rapids. That's where I was born, Cedar Rapids.
Okay.
And over on the west side, on 8th Avenue, on the west side. And all I can ever think of, so far as I can remember, was airplanes. I don't know why. And as soon as I could write, I got mail and invitations from every flying school I could find in any magazine or any place. I had a stack of stuff like that about learning to fly. And I really wanted to learn how to fly. That's all I could think of. And I built little airplanes, even to places. Do you remember when I lived on 6th Street, right behind Calvary Baptist Church?
Mm-hmm.
I lived right next to the church. In fact, my backyard was the backyard of the church.
Is your house still there?
It's still there.
Huh. I'll have to go down and take a look at it.
And 415 6th Street.
415 6th Street.
415 6th Street, Southwest. And across the street was Me Too grocery store.
Did they have model airplanes? Could you build model airplanes in those days?
No, I'm talking about when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived there till I was 9 years old. And that's when my dad started preaching. And when he started preaching, why, he was an uneducated preacher. So you can bet that he belonged to the evangelical church. And they had a conference one year, and they sent him to Lawn Hill. It was a little town exactly 8 miles southwest of Eldora. And it was exactly 8 miles across, mile this way, that way, for 8 miles, and that put us in Eldora. And that's where I started school. No, I started school at Lincoln School.
On the west side in Cedar Rapids.
On 9th Avenue and
Top of the hill.
18th
9th
Street.
Avenue. Mhm.
18th Street. Or no, was it 19th? I don't remember. It was 18th or 19th Street. But I lived on 615 8th Avenue, just a couple blocks down from the school. And that's as soon as I learned to write, I started writing to play, where you learn how to fly. And one day was an airplane come over. I told my dad about it. He said, well, let's go see where it's going to land. So we landed, and then I saw my first airplane. This was I was born in 13. So I must have been about 6, 7 years old when I saw my first airplane and said, so I take off. And I was just completely thrilled to see that thing moving across the whole oats field, and it flew. I was just completely thrilled when I saw that. And even then, I made my mind, that's what I'm going to do.
That was it.
And that was it. So I started reading about airplanes. And if you want the nose up, you pull the stick back. If you want the nose down, you push on the stick. If you want to bank to the left, you put the stick to the left. If you want to bank to the right, you use the right stick. But I didn't know anything about coordination then. But I soon found out what a rudder is for in an airplane. The only reason they put a rudder on an airplane, because when you sit in the airplane straight, like that, and use nothing but right stick, that makes this wing go down. But that doesn't make it go down. Doesn't go down. The left wing has to come up. But what makes it come up is that aileron out there. The aileron goes down, makes the wing come up. But as soon as that went down, that caused some drag on that side of the airplane. So if you sit in an airplane, a small airplane, the regular airplane that we're talking about, none of this automatic stuff, you move the stick to the right, like that, and that wing goes back a little. That's why they put a rudder on an airplane, as counteract an adverse yaw caused by using the aileron.
You gotta counteract
That's
that
where
with
coordination come in. When you move to the right, you got to use a rudder to keep that wing up and start your turn. That's where coordination comes in. And it took me a while to learn that actually.
Where can I stop you? Where did you take your first lessons to learn how to fly out?
Waterloo.
In Waterloo.
Yeah,
And that was you don't probably remember the year of that, was it?
absolutely. And March 7th, it was March 17th. It was Yeah, I think it was on St. Patrick's Day, 1936.
Good day.
1936. Took my first ride in an old Cub. Well, that was my first lesson. But my first ride was at the old Des Moines Airport, out at Altoona, just across the fence from Ladies Reformatory. And that was where the Des Moines Municipal Airport was, out by Altoona. And I went out there. I was 16. I going to school in Maxwell. And a friend of mine, Jack Nutting, from, he was from Missouri. And he wanted to fly too. But his dad was a farmer, and a poor farmer, and he didn't have money to learn how to fly either. But I went on and finished high school. I graduated from, well, we lived out of town for a while, but I come back and finished my first part of my 12 years. I graduated from Grant High School
Cedar Rapids.
in Cedar Rapids in 1932. And
You get tired, well, just let me know, and we can stop, and then we can start up again.
well, I did have a hard time getting the words out on account of it.
You're doing a fine job. Don't worry about it. It's wonderful.
I really got lung problems. I got emphysema so bad. I'm one of them guys that thought you had to smoke. I quit over 25 years ago, but it wasn't soon enough. The emphysema caught up with me. And so I still have a hard time breathing. But anyhow,
So you were out Altoona, and you got, that was for your
that was my
first
first ride.
first ride.
They'd send me after a bucket of prop wash. And I didn't know what they talking about. So I'd take a bucket, go over to the other hangar, and try to get a bucket of prop wash. I didn't know the prop wash was the air that comes off a propeller. And it was crazy. But, and finally I had a job driving a truck that sold cakes and cookies, rolls, and that kind of stuff out of Chicago. I would pick them up at the early streamliner that came in at 5 o'clock here in Cedar Rapids. And I had to get to Waterloo by 7. So I started work early, 2 days a week. 2 days a week in Waterloo, 2 days a week in Cedar Rapids, and 2 days a week in Iowa City. Well, I didn't have any time on the Cedar Rapids and Iowa City days because they were too long. It was dark when I got through. And at Waterloo, always had a little time to spare because because that was a new part of the job. Whereas when we had at Waterloo. So I drove right by the old I can't use the name of it now. Canfield Airport in Waterloo on old Highway 20 on the north side of Waterloo. And one day I went by there and said, learn to fly with Livingston's. First lesson free. But, I got to back up a minute. When I took my first airplane ride, it was at the old Linn Airport.
You're off to it.
And I moved lawns and washed airplanes and all prop washed. And finally this guy broke down. He said, how'd you like to go for a ride? So he took me for a ride. I got a picture of the airplane here. You can remember the number, C9824. It was a Travel Air 4000 with the one that had the ears and the ailerons. The extra.
Extensions on the yellow.
Yeah. And that was my first ride. And boy, was I thrilled. I was 16 years old. But I lived in this town of Maxwell then, which is about 30 miles north of Des Moines. But I got my first ride in that Traveler. And then I had to figure out some way to get enough money to learn how to fly. And I finally changed jobs. I was driving a milk truck. And I finally changed jobs. I got this job on this big road in Chicago, which paid me almost $10 more a week. But back then, that was a lot of money. And so I stopped it. I saw this sign for a couple of weeks. First lesson free. Finally, I stopped. And told this guy I was going to take advantage of it. You're advertising out there. I'll go for an airplane ride. I want to learn how to fly. Okay. So he put me in the airplane. He took off. I don't know how high it went. A couple thousand feet, I suppose. So finally he just stopped both guns. That's all yours. And you talk about a scared little redhead. I was really scared. I scared me to death. Because I knew that you push forward to make it go down. Pull back to make it go up. I knew exactly everything. But I didn't know how far. I didn't know how far. How much pressure. Or anything about it. So he let me scare myself. And he could see that I was worried. So finally he put his hand back on it. On the controls. Took it over. Looked at me, he says, "You still want to learn how to fly?" I I said, you bet I do. But I can tell I got an awful lot to learn. And you know, since that day, I've never been a pilot at all. I have been a student of aviation since St. Patrick's Day, 1936. Because you never learn all there is to learn about flying. And that was my only interest, was flying. So I kept trying to learn how to fly better. So I got a private license, took the written tests, the oral tests, the flight tests with the FAA inspector. Passed them all. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to do something about this flying, I'm going to have to get a commercial license and then an instructor training. So I bought an airplane, an old 37 Taylorcraft. But it was almost new then, because I bought it in 38. And it had no brakes, no tail wheel, only with single ignition, and one door. I mean, it was a bare naked airplane, weighed 480 pounds. It was as sparse as you could get in an airplane. It didn't have anything. No radios. I never heard of a radio in an airplane. And I built up my flying time to get a limited commercial license, because I already had the private, and I could take people for a ride, but I couldn't charge them for it. Now I had to do something to make some money, so I got a limited commercial license. On that limited commercial license, I got it here someplace. The old limited commercial license, and it said right on there, Canfield Airport, Waterloo. And that's the only place I could fly. And I could haul passengers, take them right over town, and come back and land at Canfield. I couldn't take off and go to any other airport. That was my designated airport, was Canfield. And that was the only place I could haul passengers. So I used a commercial license, or a limited commercial, and built up my time till I got closer to 200 hours. And I started practicing for the commercial license, which was a whole lot more advanced than what I'd been doing. And I finally figured I was ready for a commercial license. Old Dan Hunter took me for a ride. I said, I want to get recommended for a commercial license. He said, okay. So he taught me all there was to know about being a commercial pilot. All the different things you had to do. All the spins and eights and all the stuff you had to do to get a commercial license. And went down to Des Moines one afternoon, took the oral test, the written test, and the flight test, all in one day. And come home and come work the license. And I thought, oh boy, now I got to get instructor ready. So I started hauling people. And I had the time enough to have 200 hours for instructor training as well as commercial license. So I built up my flying time till I had 200 hours and took my commercial flight test, or instructor training. And I started instructing.
Where did you have to go to take those tests?
They either the EAA or the FAA inspectors come to your airport, or you had to go to theirs. In my case, it was in Des Moines. One week, I went down to Des Moines to take my flight test, because that's where he happened to be when I wanted to get my license. And I passed it. And I thought I knew something about flying. Then I started instructing. Then I learned how to fly. I mean, kept on learning. Because it's so... I don't think anybody knows everything there is to know. It's like anything else. You don't know it all. If you think you do, no, you better quit.
You're fooling yourself.
You're fooling yourself. Because nobody knows everything about everything. It's just, you can learn something. I always figured that I learned to fly from and with my students. Because a student will ask you a question and he wants an answer. And you got to dig real deep sometime to come up with an answer that satisfies you and him. Otherwise, you don't try to answer. So you find the answer to all that stuff.
Did you do a lot of instruction at Hunter Field in Cedar Rapids?
Yeah.
Do you have time to tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, I did the most. My instructing at Hunter Field after I come back from the service. I come back and I hadn't done an awful lot of instructing since I left the Air Force cruiser. I went through 17 classes of 5 students in each class. I went through 17 classes. Instructing Air Corps cadets.
Were they from Iowa City or Cole College? Or
They were from all over the United States.
All over that.
I done this in Gulf Coast Training Command. I wrote to the Gulf Coast Training Command. I was running the airport up at Clarion.
Could you describe how big Hunter Airport was back in those days? Can you remember? I know it had one hangar, I thought, or maybe more than one.
Well, they had 2 hangars, One was for me. One is strictly maintenance, and they had the big one for storage, and a bunch of airplanes set out. The Stinson set out because it was so big. And I went back to Clarion and was running the airport up there. And well, that was where I was. I was out with a student on December 7th, 1941, when I came in one day at noon, and the office was clear full of people. See that church? Door open. Somebody out, hey, Red, World War. I said, what do you mean, World War? Japan just bombed Pearl Harbor. So I had to get to keep it legal. Every airport operator had to have armed guard on the aircraft 24 hours a day. Well, I couldn't hire a guy to be in the airport. So I got myself deputized. I went down to the county sheriff, and he deputized me as a assistant something. But anyhow, and give me a permit to keep a gun. And I took my metal cot, moved it to the airport. So I lived there 24 hours a day. And the guy that's on the farm right across the street, when I had to fly or go someplace, he was deputized to stay in the airport while I was gone.
He was your fill-in.
Pardon?
He was your fill-in when you were going.
Right.
You had to take a flight.
That's right. And then I got a whole bunch of snow in December. I didn't fly for about 2 weeks because the city was so busy keeping streets and clearing cleaned out. They didn't have time to bring the grader out of the airport. And if you're not flying, you're not making any money. I was getting $1 an hour for instruction. $1 an hour. Now I think you pay $20, $25 for an instructor. It's expensive. It's terrible. But I've put an awful lot of hours for $1 an hour. So when I got all that snow and wasn't making any money, I wrote to the Gulf Coast Training Command, which was run by Spartan School of Aviation in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and told them that I had instructor training for running an airport. And is there any chance that I could get a job instructing in the Air Corps and the cadets. And they wrote back and says that he was supposed to have 1,000 hours. Now only had 800. But the guy that taught me to fly in Waterloo was already there working, and he was a flight commander. And he had 7, 8 other instructors that worked for him. And each flight commander had 7 or 8 instructors he was responsible for. So, anyhow, the guy that taught me to fly in Waterloo was already down there. Was one of the bosses. And he heard about my letter to Captain Balfour. And he knew that Balfour had turned me down because I didn't have 1,000 hours. So when he heard about it, he went in. He said, "Hey, you better hire that guy, because I taught him to fly. And he'll make you a real good instructor." So I got a letter from Captain Maxwell W. Balfour. That says, "Report the earliest possible date." So I went down and started flying. First day, he gave me a flight check. First, and I was expecting a real rough ride. And guy says, "I'll tell you when we can take over, when you take over." So we got in the air. He went up to about 6,000, 7,000 feet, I don't know. And he flew it upside down and done all kinds of aerobatics. Finally, we're on our back. He shook the stick, and we're connected with these rubber Gosports, so he could talk to me. I couldn't talk to him, but he could talk to me. We're on our back. It's all yours.
Give it to you when it's upside down.
Give it to me upside down. I'd never been on my back
Probably not.
because
Didn't have plane stress for everything.
I didn't have airplane stress for inverted flight. All I was Cubs, Jams, and stuff. I didn't worry about that. When upside down, he said, "It's all yours." So I wallowed it out. And it was in March. And looked around, and all the farmers were burning out their fields, had little fires going on. And you could tell where the wind was. So that's the first thing you look for is when you have an emergency landing. Why, first thing you do is look for wind direction. So I looked down. Wind was out of the north. So it meant that I had to land, go north, into the wind. And I set up my idea of enter the traffic pattern. Might have been different. This guy was testing me. But I did it the way I'd been taught. So, landed just exactly where I wanted. He just pulled her up on the line. He pulled it up on the line, or we pulled it up. And he says, "Are you going to instruct here?" So, I know it passed. And all I did was roll it over from it and went through the horse landing procedure. Everything worked good, so I started instructing them. And did it for the next 3 solid years. And that's where I got my 17 classes of 5 each. So I taught a bunch of guys to fly. Oh, out of all the 17 classes, I washed out 2.
You get instructor. You're a pretty good instructor.
No, I had pretty good students, but I had to wash out 2. One, because he couldn't find his fanny with both hands. He just could not fly. He comes from a wealthy family, and all he could talk about was his Mercedes and that kind of stuff. Just he was real money conscious, and I told him that he was one of the nicest guys I ever met. Real nice guy. And I told him, he says, "Yeah, I know, but he says, I can't quit thinking about these Mercedes I'm driving." And he says, "Flying's nothing like driving." And the other guy, I watched him out for insubordination. There's not many of them, but when your students come out to meet you, they come at you 5 at a time. They all walk up, stop in front of you, and salute. And the instructor returns it. But this guy will come out with his hands in his pocket, parachute patting him in the behind. He'd walk up to with the rest of them. He'd say, "Hi, Red, how you doing?" You know, he couldn't stand authority. He just couldn't stand any kind of regimentation. He didn't want anybody telling him what to do. So he would come out and he'd say, "Hi, Red, how you doing?" And I said, "You gotta quit talking like this." I says, "In this case, I'm the boss. And you're supposed to salute like the rest of the guys do. Well, you know, I'll return it." He didn't change. So I sent him over for elimination. And he done the same thing with the colonel. He couldn't hack authority.
This kind of guy got killed.
What's that?
Those kind of guys make mistakes and
Yeah.
get killed.
That's right. So he, I watched him out.
And what did you do after you trained all these cadets for the service during after
Well,
the war? When
then-
the war kind of wound down, what did you do then?
Well, they start winding down and closing the schools. And I got and figured, well, I could transfer to some other outfit and keep on flying. But it don't work that way. Our boss, the chief flight instructor, says, no, he says, you're going to have to do more. You're going to have to take 5 weeks of instruments, 5 weeks of multi-engine transition, and then take a flight test. We don't care how much time you got. You got to do it the Army way. He says, you know, there's only 2 ways to do things. Army way and the wrong way. And he says, you never went through pre-flight, basic, or anything like that. You haven't never went. So you're going to have to go through 5 weeks of instruments, 5 weeks of multi-engine transition, and then get an instrument rating. And as you can do this all in 10 weeks. So I did. Got my instrument rating. And graduated. April 15th, 1940. '44. And now we'll send you someplace. So this is it. Sent me to India. And I had never even seen a C-46. But when I got into Karachi, India, they checked my record. He says, you don't have much C-46 time, do you? I said, I've never seen a C-46. Right, he says, you're gonna. So I checked out and see C-46. And that's what I flew on the hub until the war was over. And he moved our outfit from, well, it would be about central China to Shanghai. When I got to Shanghai, well, in the meantime, when I first got to India, I was at Shabwa, India. And I was waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. I didn't do any flying. I didn't do anything. There was a sign on the bulletin board one day. It says, we need 14 flight emergencies officers. You can sign up at the headquarters. So I went and signed up for training for it. flight emergency officer. Flight emergency officer is in charge of sidearms, parachutes, life rafts, jungle survival coats, suits, parachutes, oxygen, anything to do with flight. And we're going to start the school. School lasted 10 weeks. So at the end of 10 weeks, he came around and told me one morning, he says, we changed our mind. We only need 6 flight emergency officers. He says, you're one of them. I said, well, that's good. He said, where do you want to go? I said, what kind of a choice do I have? Well, I was having in the Assam Valley, down where I was going through all this film school work. They had average of 400 inches of rain a year. You could take a stick and stick it in the ground, and by the next morning, the north side of it would be all covered with moss. It was so wet and humid. Moss would go on anything. It was terrible. And my toenails were coming off. I was having trouble with my fingers. I just had jungle rot. And I said, I want someplace where it's cool. So they sent me to Luliang, China. Elevation 6,800 feet. Now you can imagine the length of the runways at 6,800 feet. We had 50. Of course, the C-46, you can operate them on 5,000 foot runways on the level like Cedar Rapids. But at 6,800, we had 15,000 feet of runway with 500 feet of crushed rock on each end. And if you took off with anything over 50,000 pounds, you sit at the end of the runway. You hold the brakes, open the throttle, and let go of everything. And you go 15,000 feet. And there were times, if there was no wind, you could hear the wheels when they crushed rock at the other end on takeoff. It was wild, but you kind of get used to it. You know, you get used to anything. And I did. I learned how to do it. And I guess I lucked out because I wanted to do it. And in the meantime, I was making trips over the hump. Started out as co-pilot. And finally got checked out. 46s. And then when I went to Shanghai, they pulled all Curtis equipment with C-46. It was Curtis. They pulled them all and went to Douglas for everything. Because me being twin engine, I went from C-46 down to C-47, which is the DC-3. And I flew with them. And I had a trip to Taiwan, which is right straight south of Shanghai. We went down in the morning, and then we made another trip down to the middle of the island. We come back to Aoku. Went in and had lunch. Then we went someplace else. I don't remember where it was. And about 4 o'clock we started back to Shanghai. And we got to within, I'd say, 35, 40 minutes from Shanghai. And I called Shanghai. Said they were landing in Shanghai. He said, well, I got news for you. Go back to your point of departure. He said, I'm standing here out on the porch, on the tower, and I can't even see the ground. So he said, go back to your point of departure. We'll try it again tomorrow. Because it was on January 19th, 1946. And there's just no way you can go in it. You can't even see the ground from the tower. So I went headed back to Formosa. And it's a 13,000-foot mountain on the north end. So I went to 14,000. And I want instruments. And at 14,000, you can get wind from any direction in January. So I didn't know it. Oh, the guys in the tower on Formosa, when we left, started back to Shanghai, they shut their radios off and went home. So we couldn't use that radio to home back in. So we had to either get to Shanghai or find someplace else to land. So finally, we're getting pretty short on gas. So I let down and figured it. We're either eat out in the China Sea or out in the Pacific. But whatever it was, we going south. And if I turned left, I'd go, or turn right. I could go either hit Chinese mainland or Formosa. But I let down to 300 feet. Nothing but water. So all of a sudden, we ran out of daylight, altitude, gas, and brains. I said, we got one choice. To put in the drink. Ditch it. So we threw it out there. Everything that was loose in the airplane. Threw it all out. Had 18 people on board, including the crew. And lined up the airplane as much as we could. Much I had nothing loose flying around. We threw out everything. The courier mail, everything. Everything went out. Because we didn't want anything flying around when you hit the water. Because hitting the water is like a brick wall. And you leave the gear up, flaps down. I come in slow as you can. You try to keep your tail low. But it hits, bounces a little. And it goes like this. And then goes down in the water. But, and it comes back up. And when it come back up, we, everybody got out. Everybody. Now, the co-pilot, I could see he was in pretty bad shape. Because he had one of the B-15 jackets on. And they're pretty heavy. And his elbow had hit the throttle quadrant that sticks back here between the two seats, between the pilot and co-pilot. And he hit that with his elbow. And then he did. He broke his bone. And it was sticking out through his jacket. I thought, my God, what do I do now? So I called the radio man. I can't get the door open in the back. The radio door had jammed. I said, get up on top. Get up on the wing out. I'll try to hand you Mike. And Mike weighed about 155, 60 pounds. And I grabbed him. And somehow, and I know I couldn't ever do it again, stuck him up like that. And he grabbed a hold of him and pulled him up through the Astrodome. And they immediately put him in a lifeboat. And I crawled out through there. And when he got in, everybody got in the lifeboat. The airplane went down. All the way. And it took about 8 minutes for the airplane to fill up enough water to go down. But we all got out of the airplane. And we got in the lifeboats. And we put the one with Mike in it, the co-pilot. Put him in the middle with a lifeboat on each side. and tied all three of them together. Then they started throwing out of the shark repellent. We saw sharks that night. Before it got dark, we saw sharks. But none of them bothered us. They all stayed in the water. But then I wondered, what am I going to do now? Look at that poor old Mike laying down there. With a bone sticking out through his jacket. I took the scissors out of it. First aid kit. And cut the sleeve. I like that. Down enough to get off. I always wondered what I'd do if somebody really needed help. And he did. He started coming to then. And he was in pain. I had a whole bunch of these little morphine syringes. You've probably seen them. Little plastic tube. About that long. About a quarter-inch in diameter. With a needle on the end. You pull the cover off the needle. Just give him a shot of pure morphine. If I give him enough, and he would quit yowling. And I could see then that he was. I said, now what do I do? Well, I am not a doctor. Didn't have any idea what to do. What I knew was that the muscles and everything are tied together. And it didn't look like any muscles were damaged. So I just stuck my foot up underneath his armpit, grabbed his wrist, and pulled it just as hard as I could pull it, and let it back in easy. You know, the next morning, doctor said he didn't even have to set that arm because it broke. It was jagged. But by pulling it up, letting it back, in one deal just like that. And ain't now. Oh, he's got a little scar on his arm. And that's all. So I think I lucked out there. And that made me happy. Now, I'm the only one that got any compensation at all for that. But I got the air medal. Nobody got it. Nobody else got anything else. But I got the air medal. And that's the only thing I could think of as for saving fixing his arm. I didn't do it because I knew what I'd do it.
But he probably would have died if you hadn't done that.
Well, I don't want he to died.
I mean,
But-
from shock, he might have before.
Well, yeah. But he was stubborn. Really stubborn. And then doctor told me the next morning, you give that guy the morphine to kill a horse. But I didn't care. It worked. And get it pretty soon, Jared. Show you the airmobile I got for that.
Then did you come home shortly after 46 then?
Yeah.
And then, what did you do at Hunter Field here? Did you ever work here? We're curious about that.
I started, like, I was driving down for his dad. And Jim Watson spotted me across the street. He made a U-turn on First Avenue, pulled up alongside of me, went like that. I stopped. He says, "You still flying?" I said, "Haven't been doing any instructing." He says, "Well, we got the GI Bill going out here on the airport." And he says, "You be just the right guy for that because you instructed so many cadets. So much to work for Watson." And
This might have been about 1947 then, or around in
46.
46.
In June of 46. Yeah.
What kind of runways did they have out of Hunter to fly on?
Sod.
Sod runways. You had just north, south, or did you have 3 runways?
And north and south. And one diagonal.
Did you have a cafeteria out there where you could eat or anything?
Yeah.
At the airport?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could eat out there. Yeah, they had a nice little restaurant. Some guy and his wife run this little restaurant out there. Right on the corner.
Did you have landing lights at the field at all, or what kind
No.
of facilities did you have at that time?
We done a lot of night flying, but we didn't have any. We didn't have landing lights. We had those little kerosene pots that you light them with a match, and they were down both sides of the road. And you done a lot of guessing.
Was there any radio communication at all?
No,
Was there a control tower?
no,
No.
not 100. They had, what do they call that radio?
Windsock?
No, they had radio, but I forget what they call it now. Well, they had a windsock, but they couldn't see it, of course, at night. And there wasn't any wind anyhow.
Why did you do a lot of night flying? What was the purpose of that?
What's that?
Why did you do a lot of night flying? Was that just because you worked during the day and you couldn't fly, or why was there a lot of night flying done then?
Oh, we done quite a bit of night flying. But it was just in the traffic pattern. Well, then I started instructing at Municipal, where they had the tower. I done, after all my students got a private license, and I'd check them out at night. We'd take off in the daylight and fly it till it got dark. And then maybe go to Iowa City or Waterloo or Marshalltown or Davenport. We done quite a lot of night flying like that.
Do you recall of any other small airports around Cedar Rapids that you might have flew in and out of, like Saxon?
Oh, yeah. Saxon. I used to fly a lot out of Saxon. That's where the glass palaces sitting now. And that pond, a duck pond, was just an old muddy slough back in the 30s.
You say Glass Palace, but a lot of people don't know what that is. That's you're talking about the Collins radio. Correct?
Yeah, that black glass building.
Do you remember Dan Hunter? What was he like?
Overbearing.
Overbearing type person?
Yeah. He always let you know that he was better than you were. When he gave me my recommendation right for a commercial license, and when I went to down Des Moines in my tailor craft to get my commercial license, the guy didn't tell me. I didn't know who he was. He was a FAA inspector. But when I got through, he says, when you gave me a recommendation, like you did, he said you wouldn't even have to fly the airplane. He said you done a real good job of flying.
Do you remember, did you say, no, Admiral Byrd came here one time, or Roscoe Turner. Did you meet any of those kind of people out there at the airport?
Yeah, Roscoe Turner. And there was a guy that that's our Chamberlain.
Chamberlain, he flew transit across the ocean.
Yeah.
And Roscoe Turner.
Yeah, and Roscoe Turner. Ran into a whole bunch of them guys when I went to the National Air Races in Chicago.
They had air races in Chicago.
Cleveland.
Or Cleveland.
Cleveland.
You remember anything specific about any certain type of, or just in general, what it was like flying there? What did United ever come in and out of the Hunter Airport?
They were in a couple of times, but not very much.
Alex Fiddler's son was a pilot for Pan American. I believe he flew some kind of airplane one time. Do you remember Alex Fiddler?
Remember the name?
His son.
I remember the name, but I can't put a face on it.
Trying to think of
And Charlie Gatchett was pilot for Des Moines Register. He used to fly that auto gyro around.
a picture of gyro. I believe that was red colored. That was the first
No.
auto gyro I ever seen.
It was blue.
Was it blue? Okay.
It was blue. And when you get the rotation started, you give it a push, and you start taxiing. And it would finally pick up speed. And then you turn around and take off into the wind. And by then it was turning out.
You had to have forward motion to get left.
Well, it was freewheeling. It wasn't powered.
I see.
Did you happen to fly anybody up from the Cedar Rapids Gazette or any local photographers that might have taken pictures of Cedar Rapids?
Yeah. In fact, I got a picture about that big of downtown Cedar Rapids. I don't know where it is. This gal that tried to follow the meteor arts deal around the world. What's her name? She lives in Story City. She was going to make a story about old time flying. I sent her about that. Well, much stuff. I got part of it back. For what I didn't. But,
Were you connected with Hunter Airport at all when they had the fire that burnt the airplanes and the hangars up that time?
no,
That was before your time or after?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Would you like to take a rest now?
I don't need a rest. No, I feel all right.
Can you think of any, I can't think of anything special about Hunter Field? I don't remember any fatalities out there.
Yeah, there was a guy in Cessna. I forget where he was from, but he was putting on the air show. And he rolled on over, stuck it in the ground, under full power. That was terrible. That was bad. And there was a guy come into Waterloo from Indiana with a tri-motor Ford. And he went up and asked Doc Brown, my instructor. He says, you got anybody around there like to ride with me for a while in the Ford? Doc says, yeah, imagine where I did like to go. So the guy come over. Would you like to ride for a while? The Ford? Yeah, I'd like that. So he took off, flew it around once with a load of passengers, 14 passengers, buck ahead. And he got back on the ground. He got out and sold another load of tickets. He come back up, sat down on the right side. He said, I'll let you try it this time. He says, speeds are about the same as your Taylor craft. Cruise about 98 miles an hour. And he says, speeds are about the same. Take off about the same speed. He says, it's not tries to go get her plane. Got a tail wheel. And you can fly that. So when he got up in the air, he reached down, pulled up a little wicker basket, had a bottle in it. He took it out, took a big slug out of it, and moved forward along. After 2 or 3 flights, I could see that he was in no condition to fly that airplane. He just was not in any condition to fly that airplane. And we're flying off Canfield Airport up in Waterloo. And so I didn't say anything, I just kept on flying. Pretty soon he was just sitting there like that. And I was flying, holding his passengers, 14 at a time. He didn't know anything about it. That was how I got checked out in the 4-dry motor.
Did you work at Collins for a number of years, Red?
Yeah. About almost 14 years. On account of Doc Lippisch.
You worked with him?
Yeah. See, I was going to quit flying. And I started this little hobby shop downtown. And I was at 108 3rd Avenue West, across the People's Bank. And right next door to Modern Plants. And I was flying for $100 at a time on the GI Bill. And my wife had knitting classes in my shop. So she would come down if I went out and flew in the daytime. She'd wait on my customers if she could. And they asked her questions that she couldn't answer naturally, because she never built them on her in her life.
Was she ever a passenger with you when you were flying?
Who, my wife?
Your wife, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever teach Zell how to fly?
No. I took her for a ride once. I was signal in, and I picked Bill up downtown, and I said, would you like to go for an airplane ride tonight, this evening? She said, yeah. So I went out, got in the airplane, took off, went out to Waterloo for supper.
Do you remember back in those days of Hunter, was there any commercial companies like Quaker Oats or Iowa Steel or anybody that flew out of the Hunter Airport at all? Or was that before the time commercial air companies had airplanes?
Well, Chris Hahn,
Chris Hahn.
of Century Engineering, or not Century, engineering on 17th Street in the 1000 block. He used to fly. Out of there. And there was a couple. I can't remember who they are now.
I think you've done a wonderful job remembering.
Marv?
I think we probably
I think
covered as much as we can today. Sometime, if you feel comfortable with it, you've got some photographs in that of those period of time. I would love to sit down with you with the camera on, and you could go through the photographs, and that would trigger your memory. You could tell me what you thought about each one of those photographs sometime.
Yeah, okay.
I think that would be very illuminating to people.
that's him over in that lower right-hand corner too, looking out of the.
Look at that. That reminds me of a lot.
What's a picture upper left-hand corner of that by wing there? Can you tell, Bud, what that is?
That's the first one I ever wrote in.
Is that right? I got a nice picture of it.
Is that a traveler? Is that what that was
Travel
called?
Air.
Travel Air, yeah.